I love Ecamm Live, but what I absolutely hate about this product is setting up my desktop for a new stream recording. In this recording, I want to work through a few different steps that I've been taking to get my windows into the correct position so that every time I change scenes, a window is nicely positioned within a frame. I'll work through three areas. Number one is getting the windows into the right position, the right size. This includes the aspect ratio, location on what in my case is a very big monitor, a 5K monitor, which is the size of two 27-inch monitors. I'll go into the process that I use so that I can replace all those windows whenever I need by just pressing a button. Lastly, I will set up a bunch of scenes and layouts within Ecamm Live. Talk about the challenges that I regularly have in this area, how I'm managing to overcome them at the moment. I just want to reiterate, I love Ecamm Live, but this part of the process has been really challenging for me over the last 2 weeks that I've been using the product. I thought I'd start by showing the problem that I'm trying to manage. What you're looking here is my entire screen, two 27-inch monitors in size, but it's a 5K monitor. What that means is it has 5,120 pixels across and 1,440 pixels down. It's not got your normal 16:9 aspect ratio, which is the size that you would be watching if you were watching a regular YouTube video. Instead, it's equivalent of two of them side by side. Today, we're going to work through how do I get this all laid out so that I can have an efficient Ecamm Live process. Let's quickly go through the windows that I'm dealing with on a regular basis. In this big window, we've just got a web page. I often do my mind mapping and organization of thoughts here, but I might have other things like Logo Pony. I was playing around with logo creation software. I want to teach people about these topics. The next window, which is sized in a vertical orientation, is the ChatGPT window. I'm doing a lot of prompt engineering. I want to be able to talk about that. Quite often need to control the computer from the command line, so terminal is very important. Almost always a requirement for some sort of software development. Most of these are 16:9, but at different sizes. Lastly, the other big window I use is Mid-Journey. I don't want to show the whole window. I really only want to focus on the section where the pictures are. I'm also often using the Finder window. All of these windows that I've just talked about need to show up in my Ecamm Live in different scenes. Sometimes it's just one. It might just be the Visual Studio Code is the focus, or it might be two. It might be that I've got Visual Studio Code to show some code being created, and ChatGPT over on the right or on the left. You can see how the two connect with one another. And pretty much every window you see here is either single focused or paired focus. Let's have a talk about window management and window size setup. I've got this product here called Moom, which does part of the job I want, but then there's the issue of actual layouts. If we look at this little image off the internet, you've got all these windows and some of them are bigger than others. The idea is that some might be taller, some might be wider. They're definitely in different positions. Another thing to be aware of, if you look at this image of windows, there's no overlap. Overlap in Ecamm Live has been causing me a bit of issues. I'll show you the problem a bit later on in this video. I have this need to have windows of different sizes, but I also have a need for them not to overlap where possible. That can be challenging. So let's have a look at how I manually position and measure my windows. What I'm doing is I'm using a Chrome extension called Window Resizer. What it allows you to do is set up a bunch of presets in which a Chrome window will become a particular size at a particular position. This is not very useful to the other windows in my system like Visual Studio or the terminal, but I use it more to find these positions and get a window into location. I might put the Visual Studio over the top of it or the terminal over the top of it. Are there better ways of doing this? Probably, but I haven't come across it at the moment on the Mac. We're looking at a window and we click down here. If I put this to what I've called Ecamm, because this is laying out my Ecamm setup, GPT narrow, it will move over to the right here. The thing is, it doesn't overlap any other windows the way it is. If I create a new window, go to 1080p, which is my normal web view, it's sitting over here on the right. It doesn't overlap the one on the left. We can then take the window that I would usually have for the terminal, put one of these windows up here, go for 1280 by 720. It's a 720p high definition display. Click it, it pops up into the left right there. Another position I have is a 520p. It will move down to the bottom right of my screen. I often will put my Finder windows down there. If you were scrapbooking or doing something with woodwork, you might put down a piece of paper to guide things. That's what I'm using this for. I can then take this window, which is a Finder window, put it into place, or I can get this into place and size by clicking on here, going up to the 721, should take it to the right, it does. I can just move this into position over the top of it. This is how I'm currently getting my windows into position. It's a little time consuming, but it was better than just the random arrangement that would often happen. It's also not a perfect setup because there's still some overlap going on. If I bring up the Visual Studio, it doesn't overlap with the ChatGPT window, but it does overlap a little bit with the terminal window. I could maybe make this a 520p rather than a 720p, not have as much overlap. That'll be a problem because as the mouse moves around over the top of the terminal window, it's also moving over the top of the Visual Studio window, even though when you lay out your Ecamm Live, they might be totally separate from one another, but the mouse isn't. The mouse is actually in the same place. I don't know whether that's a bug or whether it's just something that they can't resolve because it's with Windows, but it's a little bit of a challenge. The other issue that you can see is that the web view is totally over the top of the Visual Studio view. If I pop it up, they cover one another. There's not much I can do, even though this is a massive monitor. I don't have more room. There's also another problem you have when you do have windows that are out of your sight line, is that when you look to the right, you're now not looking at the camera. Now, I do plan to have more cameras set up, but that's also a little bit of extra work that we've got to set up to get things just working nicely. Now let's look at Moom. It's a Windows layout tool. Let's look at what you can do with it. When you hover over the little green icon here, you get this little square. You can click on that square. From there you can say, I want the window to be that big. Hover over it again. We might say we want it to be on the left-hand side. It takes up half the screen on the left. It's not bad for what it does, but it's not very accurate, especially when your screens get bigger. It only supports this concept of 9:9, and I want to have precise windowing positions. But it does have another capability. That's the ability to save arranged windows. So I'll right click, go into preferences here. I've got this configuration set up on my F13 key where all the windows that were on the page have been saved as a snapshot. Whatever their location and size is has been saved. A really important thing to get right when you do this is to turn off ignore obstructed windows, because you might remember that the Chrome window was over the top of the Visual Code window, and the Visual Code window overlaps a little bit on the iTerminal window. If you don't turn this off, they just won't get saved. That was one of the frustrations I had with this tool, was that I'd try to get them back into position and some of the windows wouldn't move. I go, why not? It's because they were obstructed and not being saved. What I will tell you right now is that if you do want to learn more about Ecamm Live, there are some really great people on the internet to learn from. I think these two guys run Ecamm Live. They do really good tutorials. I found out about Ecamm Live from Justin from Primal Video. I probably have an affiliate link in the description because he's someone that I learn from. I learn a lot of my YouTubing from him and a couple of other people. But another two people that I thought were really good with their teaching is Adrian Salisbury. He does really good videos on the topic. Of late, the person that I've been learning a lot from is Alec from Take One Tech. I'm probably going to join his program as well because great learning there. If I do, there'll be an affiliate link in the description. These are people that you can just learn great stuff around using Ecamm Live, especially with Alec, other sorts of automations and Stream Deck work. I got a little bit off track there. Let's go back to using Moom to position things around. I will state up front that sometimes I've had problems with this. I might screw things up, have to start again. What I'll do is I'll move this window down a little bit. I'll move this one to the right. I'll take the Discord window and I'll move it over here. I'll take this window to here. We'll move this one down here. I can press F13 to reposition everything. Pretty much perfect. If you forget something, it won't be perfect. And what I have actually forgotten is that the Finder window down in the right hand corner of my window, I mustn't have saved it. Notice this is called Ecamm Layout Hell, but we'll move it. I'm going to leave it at the size it's at actually, and I'm going to move it down here. And then we can just go to any of these preferences. You can update the snapshot. I believe this is the right button to press. So we'll click that there, replace the snapshot or merge. I don't really know the difference between the two. I'm going to go with merge. Move that out of alignment, move this out of alignment. This will get the I terminal out of alignment. From any of them, you can just arrange windows. This time I'll click on it rather than pressing F13. We are looking very good. Just make sure that the Visual Studio Code window is in position as well. Measuring where your windows are going to be, what location, resizing them, being able to do it manually with a bit of efficiency using the window resizer tool. Once you've got it all set up, use something like Moom to record all those positions. I don't believe it brings the windows into play. I think you've got to have them loaded on your screen, but it will lay it out for you that way. Let's just test one other idea, because this is probably what will happen to you. This is what happens to me all the time. Firstly, put everything into position. It's all in position, but what we'll do is we'll delete a window. We'll take it off the screen. So there's no Finder, there's no ChatGPT window. We've got this out of alignment. Let's see what happens when you're missing windows and you try to do this arrangement. It all works well, except the two windows are not there. What we might be able to do is grab a window and go to GPT Narrow. It's here. We'll call that ChatGPT. You find a window. We'll try this one more time and see if magically it gets things into position. I don't have high hopes of this working because it won't necessarily remember the exact window, but we'll try it. Look at that. Very good. It's just nice that it does that. I don't know what it would do if we had two Finder windows, but we can try that as well. Always testing. So we'll throw out two of them. We'll just put one on the download images directory. Try this one more time. Great, we've got download images there. But the other one, magically moved up there. So that's very odd. It's not necessarily gone where I want. Moom is really good at getting things back into position. It's not totally the best. Sometimes you need to manually rearrange your windows, which is why knowing about the resizer or window resizer is also a useful option. I'm going to go through the scenes and the overlays on Ecamm Live, and I'm going to start setting them up for these windows that I've created. What we should look at is the stream decks that I'm using. You can see these two little windows down in the corner, and I'll just focus in on them. The first window I've got says finish and pause. At the moment I'm recording. This is a pedal driven stream deck. It's 3 buttons. And if I press the middle one, I can change context. I've got things like I can change profiles. Let's just do one. They might not be looking good, but they should still work. If I go to the left, I'm back to the one I was just on. Keep going left, I'm on a different profile. I can use the pedals for changing profiles. I don't usually, because I usually use that for recording, pausing, stopping recording. The next one is setup, and where that would be relevant is that if I didn't have the window for my Stream Deck open, I can just press the left button and it pops up. You can see that I've got the concept of front facing. When front facing is on, this is the view that you see. I'll go back to the one that we're looking at. I also have my GPT view when I just want to see the GPT window. If I also want to see the GPT window plus Visual Studio or plus iTerminal, then I can do that. Or if I want a web page or a web page plus GPT, or if I want Visual Studio plus GPT, Terminal plus VS Code, or Midjourney plus the folder that the files would save into. We've got this desktop one, which I've only put on for today. I don't usually do my desktop, but this is so that you can see the whole screen for these examples. I'll just set up the recording so that you can see the overlay windows, the scenes and all that. It's not something that you can normally see when you're recording on Ecamm Live, but apparently there's a setting. Give me 1 second to find it. So exactly 1 second has gone by. That's one of the awesome things about these pause buttons, is that you can go off and do other stuff and resume where you're at. What I did was I went to the Facebook community for Ecamm Live. It's a great resource to get answers to your questions. I found out that you can press Command-Shift-D, which I'm pressing right now. We go into demo mode. Things like the camera, which you'll see because I might have a window going, that doesn't become available when you're in demo mode other than what's showing on screen. We now have things like the various windows that are available to Ecamm Live. For the rest of this section, I'm probably going to be in this mode. Let's tackle those layouts one at a time. The first one I'm going to do is the GPT layout, and I'll just press that on the Stream Deck, and this is what we get. The issue is it's not pointing at the right Chrome window. I will press the edit button here. I find this is the easiest way to go. You go to Chrome, pick one of the selected windows. It looks like we want the ChatGPT. We have fairly good layout there. This is a layout I did earlier before, but now the windows move, it all gets out of whack. I don't want to display the little message at the bottom of the ChatGPT, and I don't want to show the tabs or the address bar. I would consider this bit done. As I move on to the plus Visual Studio Code, we can see that the ChatGPT is not quite right, and definitely the Visual Studio is not right. One of the things that I've had a lot of problems with, I might move windows about, they don't actually have a proper aspect ratio. They might not be 16:9, maybe they're 16:10, or maybe they're 15:8, or whatever they are. If you can get your aspect ratio exactly 16:9 for most windows, then it should fit on any Ecamm Live layout, because the idea of a video that I'm doing is a 16:9. So even if it's smaller, proportionally, it should be right. We did that by going to Visual Studio. We've got it sitting right here. I am going to press edit on this. It's definitely on code, which is what we want to see. I have a wide layout. How do I solve this problem? I'm just going to click the zoom to app window. We're pretty good, but there's a whole lot of space on the left and right. I think I'm going to step forward, try and resolve this window because I do have a different way that I can tackle this. So let's go over to edit on this window and we'll set it to Chrome to ChatGPT. This is great. I'm going to come back to this one. Let's move to iTerm. This is ChatGPT plus iTerm. We will go into the edit mode on this one, set it to the window ChatGPT. This is fairly good. It's not perfect. You can see there's a little bit of stuff going on at the top. One of the things you really can't do once you lay out your windows is you can't move them around. If I tried to move this ChatGPT window around, I might get it looking well in this layout, but then I'd screw up another layout. That's just one of the challenges you have to think about. What I'll do is I'll hold the Option key down. I'm just going to move this down a little bit. I think we're pretty good there. I would like to now deal with things like VS Code, the website, and terminal in the buttons that are just solving that problem. I'll show you why. As a recap, we've got this GPT working fine. We've got the GPT aspect of VS Code working fine and the GPT aspect of iTerm working fine. I'm going to jump over to Visual Studio Code now. I press that button. We have a full view of Visual Studio. So this is a live preview. I don't know that I need that, but we'll leave it there. I almost want to start again with this one, but let's just press edit. We'll go into entire screen, wrecking whatever happened to be there. Wide is probably fine. I do like to change it around just to make sure the things are working cleanly. It's a little challenging. Go to wide mode again. I'm going to select code. Code is in place. It's cropped in on the window. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start again with this one by just deleting it. We come over to VS Code, click the little delete button. We'll add a new thing. We'll call it VS Code. Click on this little button. What it's done is reset all the orientation. We won't go with entire screen. We'll just go with code. We'll set the aspect ratio to wide. We're looking good. We can then make this a bit bigger, move it up this way. At this point, VS Code window is inside of our frame. I don't want any of the background. I don't want the desktop. I certainly don't want the button bars down the left, along the bottom, or even the tabs across the top. I will crop this window in by holding down my Option key, just dragging down. We'll go that far. If I bring it all the way in, I might get a better view, but I tend to find that when I'm using multiple versions of VS Code layouts, that it's just better that they're the same every time. What you can do now that you've got this is you can copy it back to some of these other layouts where we had problems. I'm going to move this up into the top left-hand corner, down into the right. We better just center it a little bit. If we drag window here, the webcam is sitting on top. This is the thing that I often will move from time to time. I find very useful, especially if you're using a full page layout, is to lock it. If you don't lock it, you've got this window that you can move around, but if you accidentally drag, it moves your overlay rather than the window. But if you right click on it, say lock overlay, now when you drag, it drags the whole window. But you have to do it for each element. This one is not in place. By the way, if you do screw up and go, how do I get it back to the original location? Just press Command Z. That's the undo key. It's back where we need it. Lock that one as well. Now it's draggable. But let's unlock it one more time. Click on it. I'm going to press copy. I'm going to do that by pressing the Command C button. So it's copied. We'll move back over to our ChatGPT plus Visual Studio. Just delete the Visual Studio overlay that's here. paste in the one that we just copied from the full screen VS Code. There it is. Rather than trying to rearrange that VS Code window, it's just easier to go from a full source one like you saw. We do need to drag it down. It is meant to be under the ChatGPT window. The primary focus with this particular button, we are on this orange one here, is that ChatGPT is the focus, plus you get to see VS Code. I don't need to do any other modifications on this VS Code. We have VS Code working. What I'll now do is do the other individual windows. That would be Web, iTerm, Midjourney, which will be a little different because its aspect ratio is different. I'll press the iTerm button, see what we've got. We've got a pretty good window. As I saw before, it's better just to delete it, start again. Click on it, press delete, click edit. Go from entire screen to iTerm. We have more of the application. Go to a wide view. Now quite focused. Expand the window up on 3 of the corners. Crop as we need to. I'll get rid of this brown at the bottom. The address bar or the title bar. Get rid of the right hand side. Just drag it down so it's underneath the webcam. Looks like one of the things I've been doing at some stage is I've changed my border radius. I probably need to fix that in the ones from before. I don't think there's a global way of changing these. I'll bring this back up to 5. It's a little bit fiddly, by the way. We will copy it because we're going to use this aspect ratio the way we've got it back on what I would call the GPT plus iTerms. I go press that on the Stream Deck. We can just delete this window. Delete button doesn't work. You do actually have to come in, press this little delete button here. We can paste. It's good, just too big. We'll find a spot that we like it. And because the aspect ratio was set correctly on the full view, the aspect ratio fits quite well. We could maybe make things a little bit bigger just to give more real estate. One of the big challenges that I've always been trying to do with how-to videos is not to make stuff too small. You should be able to see it even if you're running on a mobile phone. Being a little bit pedantic and particular about this, I feel is important. We'll go over to the web view. It's probably okay. I might just remove it as well because I will copy this to other windows. We go to the screen share, delete it, click the button. I think we need to drag it down 1, press edit, go out of entire screen, go to Google, but this time it's the other page involved. This is looking good. We'll press the wide, gets it at least close to where we want. Expand it all the way up and crop in. Now with this particular window, I could almost call this my MindMeister window rather than a Chrome window because I like to get rid of the little controls that are around the MindMeister window. I don't necessarily want to do that on other web pages. We'll keep it there. Now if I want to recenter the middle of this, I can do it actually on the web page. I can move it around to where I need it to be. I often do that because I might make this fairly big from time to time, and I go with the idea that the most important aspect is at the top. If it's an orange one, the most important concept is GPT plus iTerm or Web plus GPT. This is how I've been thinking it through, that primary focus is at the top line. Secondary focus, if you need a second item, is the second, third and fourth line. Move on to this blue VS Code plus GPT. The thing is, I've already got an orange GPT plus VS Code. I make a copy of both windows, go back, paste it in. There we have the VS Code. Go back now, click on the GPT window, copy that, go back and we'll paste it in as well. And you might be going, why would you do that? Why would you have a GPT plus VS Code or a VS Code plus GPT that are looking the same? One is the major focus. This is the one where GPT is secondary focus. I might just make it smaller. Move over to the iTerm plus VS Code. I'll quickly copy the originals into these spots. And there it is with the terminal taking up the major focus with a little bit of code. This is a very obvious area where I might actually get rid of all this black space on the Visual Studio, cut it up into a little square. But it's more that idea that people can see some program running and also see the code at the same time, but it's not the primary focus. The very last section is the mid-journey. I will just delete the existing mid-journey window, add on a new overlay, delete the folder, make sure that when we edit it, we go to Discord is where mid-journey is in this particular case. We want a tall one this time. So we go tall. We're looking relatively good. We can just use the option key to zoom in. We'll want the message bar. Don't want any menu bar. Don't want that top section. That's probably okay as well. Copy that, drag it more to the center. Because it's so narrow, it gives the opportunity for the webcam to be a fair bit bigger. It would be nicer if I could show more of this, but that's about where it's at. One of the ways I can make it a bit bigger is to crop in even further, but I don't like to do that in this case because you might want to read what's going on down here. We can just copy this one because if we move to the next mid-journey plus folder, we can delete them both. Go mid-journey is gone, download images is gone. We just paste what we had from the other window. We add one more, which will now be the file finder. We just click on Finder, go to wide aspect ratio. So long as you got the 16:9 aspect ratio, the wide seems to work quite regularly. We'll just crop in this case down to here. I'll just show you something while we're here, is that as I've been recording this video, I've been doing it in sections. We're at the section we're recording right now obviously isn't in the folder, but when I hit the save button, which is just on my case the left foot pedal for finish, it will write a file, a video file, directly into this directory for me. I can just change the file name and I've got all these videos in order. But for now, we'll just move that to there. In a different video, I can show more of how I create videos so that it's efficient to create content, not have to do a whole lot of post-production editing, which is what I've found to be the most exciting aspect of Ecamm Live, its ability to make editing almost a thing of the past. It's not quite that simple, but it does so much of the post-production work. I think we're done. There's a desktop view, desktop plus Stream Deck, mid-journey plus a folder. We've got our mid-journey, we've got our iTerm plus a VS Code, we've got our VS Code plus a GPT, no webcam, we could add one. We've got our web page and we've got our web page plus a GPT. Finally, we've got our GPT plus VS Code plus iTerm and our front-facing camera. At this point, I would call that a wrap. We are done setting up all our layouts. Hopefully, I'm not going to have any troubles with them. One thing I didn't talk about is that I did send off a support request last night. I dropped a couple of F-bombs in the video to them because I've found this layout process to be tedious. That's the main thing. It takes a long time to set up. Any sort of movement in your screens screws it up. I can see how things could improve over time. Hopefully we'll see them improve. Some of the issues that I think are there may not actually be related to Ecamm, but just more to the way Windows, the windowing environment works on the Mac. This is the process that I think is going to work well for me to keep my layouts the way I need them to be. Finally, I'm doing videos on ChatGPT for coding, ChatGPT for prompt engineering, and YouTube automation. So if there's anything that you're interested in, seeing the behind the scenes, how it all works, just hit me up in the comments.